in this example, we want to take some time and explore z-scores more fully and understand not only how to calculate them, but what their implications are. So suppose the mean height of human males in the galaxy is 70.2 inches with a standard deviation of 2.99 inches. The mean height of human females in the galaxy is 64.8 inches with a standard deviation of 2.79 inches. Han Solo is 6'1", while Rey is 5'8" tall. Who is absolutely taller? Explain. All right, so when you see this notation right here, this means that you're going to do a direct comparison. Put them next to each other, stand them side by side. Who is taller? Well, there's no question Han Solo is taller, right? So there's 12 inches in a foot, so 4 inches would get her to 6 feet tall plus one more. So Han Solo is taller by 5 inches. Okay? But it's not really fair to compare their heights directly. And the reason is that men tend to be taller than women. So what you really want to know is how does Han Solo compare to the rest of his group of all men, and how does Rey compare to the rest of her group of all women? Now, there are other things in life, many, many, many things actually, that would be not fair to directly compare them because they're completely different, right? In other words, they are apples and oranges. All right, so what are some apples and oranges type things? Well, obviously apples and oranges, right? So let's just stick with male female for just a second, right? So things that are just different, right? Physiologically speaking. So strength, shoe size, right? Men tend to have bigger feet. Pain tolerance, actually. And they've done studies on pain tolerance. They're actually different. Um, Neither one of them has more. It depends on what type of pain you're talking about, believe it or not. So that kind of thing. And endurance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, many, many, many things. But it's not just that. So imagine tests. So hormone tests, if you're thinking medically. Um, ACT versus SAT. A chemistry exam versus a math exam, right? The chemistry exam's out of 70 points, the math exam is out of 120. You can't directly compare them, right? Medical tests in general, right? There's a lot of things going on, and various other things. I can just think of random stuff. Um, Tree heights, right? Animals, animal heights, animal weights, animal, you know, all that kind of stuff. Uh, Candy types, right? How many candies you get in a bag, if it's plain versus a peanut M&M, that kind of thing, etc. I mean, there are so many different things in this world that you would like to directly compare, but you can't quite, right? So this tiger versus that kind of tiger, this elephant versus that kind of elephant, right? They're just different. Okay, so what are we going to do instead? So that's what z-scores are for. So things that cannot be directly compared because it would not be fair, right? We're going to use z-scores. Z-scores are fair. Because a z-score compares, this type of lion with all the types of lions versus this type of tiger versus all tigers, right? It doesn't try to compare directly the lion and the tiger. That would not be fair, right? So, for example, in men and women's heights, right? It's not fair to compare Han Solo and Rey directly, right? Because they're different. So what you have to do is you have to find Han's z-score. So let's find the z-score for Han. Give it a little subscript, z for Han. Okay, so all we need is the value, take away the mean, you can put that in parentheses if you like, and divide it by the standard deviation. Okay, so Han's height, well, we got to figure that out because we need this all to be in inches. If we look up here, everything was in inches. So let's actually take a moment right here and find Han. Han is 6 foot 1 inches. So each foot has 12 inches in it. So it's 6 times 12 plus 1, which is 73 inches tall. So there's Han's value, right? All right, so we take 73 and we subtract the mean, but Han is a man, so you have to take away this mean right here and then this standard deviation right there. Okay, so we're going to take away 70.2 and we're going to divide it by 2.99. That'll be the z-score for Han. And then we'll be able to tell who's relatively taller. But we also have to find the z-score for Ray. Okay, so the z-score for Ray would be equal to the value minus the mean divided by the standard deviation. I'm just setting both of these up and then I'm going to go calculate them with Desmos. I'm just going to do it right now. All right, so her value, we got to figure out her height. So for Ray, she's 5 times 12 inches tall plus 8, right? Because there's 5 feet, 12 inches in a foot. 5 times 12 is 60. 60 plus 8 is 68 inches tall. Okay, so down here we're going to take 68, take away, and then we need the mean for females. So the mean for females is right here. There's the mean, and then there's the standard deviation. Right? So 64.8 and 2.79. And if you don't have different colored pens, you might want to put like an F next to this one and an M next to this one, right? This is the males and this is the females, right? If you're working in just plain pen, so you can tell the difference. Okay, so let me go back down here. Now I actually want to go calculate this. Now I put parentheses in the formula just to remind you to do that. You don't have to do that if you can do it correctly with your calculator. So let me grab Desmos real quick. Okay, so if you hit the division sign first, it'll make a fraction for you, right? And then you can type 73, take away 70.2, and then use your arrow key to go to the denominator and 2.99. And we can see that his z-score is 0.936. If you don't do that first, if you just type 73 minus 70.2 and try to divide, it'll only divide the back part. And that's not good. You don't want that. So that's why I was saying to put parentheses in. If you put a parentheses in, then when you hit the division key, it'll make it so that it becomes the denominator. So if you remember to make the fraction first, then you can just type 68 minus 64.8 and then do 2.79. If you don't remember that, then you hit parentheses, 68 take away 64.8, close your parentheses, divide by 2.79. The parentheses will make it for sure that your calculator puts the two numbers together on the top, and then you divide by the standard deviation. So we find that Han Solo's z-score is 0.936, and Ray's z-score is 1.147, right? If we round, because the 9 would round that 6 up. Okay, so now who is relatively taller? Relatively taller means compare z-scores. Well, the person that's relatively taller is actually Ray. Ray is taller because the z-score is higher, right? Or larger. In other words, if you compare her to all women, she's more than a standard deviation away from the mean. Whereas if you compare Han Solo to all men, he's just a little bit less than a standard deviation away. So he's not as tall in relation to his group as she is in relation to her group. All right. Now, when you're given the score and told to find the z-score, right? When you're given their values and finding their z-scores, it's pretty straightforward. But what if we go backwards? What if we have the z-score and we want the height? So this is going to be harder. This is going to be going backwards in the z-score formula. Okay, so let me write out the formula. So the formula is z equals, you take, and Kylo Ren is a male, so it'd be x minus the mean divided by the standard deviation, right? That's the z-score formula. All right, so we know Kylo Ren's z-score is 1.605. X is the height, the value. I don't know what it is, so we put an X in it. But we know he's male, so we minus the 70.2 and we divide by 2.99. All right, this is a little bit of an algebra problem. We need to solve this for x. So the first thing we need to do is get rid of this big fraction. I mean, who wants to deal with fractions if they don't have to? So we need to multiply both sides of the equation by that denominator to make it go away, because that's division. The opposite of division is multiplying. So you multiply by the right, but then you have to multiply by the left. Otherwise, the equal sign isn't fair and balanced. So these two parts cancel because 2.99 divided by 2.99 is 1. So they're just gone. And over here, I've got 2.99 times 1.605. All right, so I'll go grab Desmos and find what that is. I can get rid of some of these. There we go. Okay, 2.99 times 1.605 is 4.79895. So I'm going to write that down. So 4.79895 equals x minus 70.2 because that's all that's left over on this side because I got rid of that denominator. All right, I still want to get x by itself. I still want to solve this. So now I want to add because that's subtraction. The opposite of subtraction is to add. So we add 70.2 to both sides. Over here, negative 70.2 plus 70.2 will disappear, right? They'll cancel. So I just need to know what 70.2 plus that number is. So 70.2 plus 4.79895. And I get 71.99, in other words, 72, right? So x is 71.9985. In other words, Kylo Ren. So that was our results, but we're going to round it. So Kylo Ren was 72 inches tall. Oh, I messed up. It was 4.7985. My goodness. I was like, how is he shorter than Han Solo? 74.99. There we go. 74. I'm just going to change this to a 74 right here. So he was 75 inches tall. There we go. If you're interested, it didn't ask, but if you're interested, that would be about 6 feet 3 inches, right? That's not necessary because it didn't ask for it, but just in case you're curious.